Meet the Mets, meet the Mets. Step right up and greet the Mets. Bring your kiddies, bring your wife. Guaranteed to have the time of your life, because the Mets are really socking the ball, knocking those home runs over the wall. East side, west side, everybody's coming down to meet the METS Mets of New York town. Oh, the butcher and the baker and the people on the streets, where do they go? To meet the Mets! Oh, they're hollering and cheering and they're jumping in their seats. Where do they go? To meet the Mets! All the fans are true to the orange and blue, so hurry up and come on down, 'cause we got ourselves a ball club, the Mets of New York town. Give 'em a yell! Give 'em a hand! And let 'em know you're rooting in the stand. Come on and meet the Mets. Meet the Mets. Step right up and greet the Mets. Bring your kiddies, bring your wife. Guaranteed to have the time of your life, because the Mets are really socking the ball, knocking those home runs over the wall. East side, west side, everybody's coming down to meet the METS Mets of New York town, of New York town.
How's it going, Mets and baseball fans? Thank you all so much for chiming into a breaking news live stream at the time of being live here on WardyNYM. I did come out with a video just under 2 hours ago on David Stearns and the report that came out that he will in fact not be able to be interviewed by the New York Mets. But I figured I'll just take that down because I know it had half a thousand views already. But I figured I'd reiterate it here again, along with the news on Billy Beane, because it just felt weird to have that video up and then talk the same exact thing about Stearns again here in the live stream. The MLB really knew how to mess me up today. I went into today with intentions of live streaming this evening more towards night on just all the latest rumors and news regarding the Mets and their present baseball operations search, along with everything managerial to what we know at this point. And then we had the Stearns report come out. Now we have Billy Beane. So we have a lot to get into, and that is what the topic of discussion is going to be in today's video. So if you guys are just chiming in, thank you all so much for being here. Make sure to smash that like and subscribe button again if you're ready to get into this one. I know that there are going to be people in here that are disappointed. I wholeheartedly understand that. I would be lying if I said I wasn't at least a little bit disappointed too, specifically when it comes to Billy Beane versus the two. But we'll be getting into exactly why this did not happen in case you guys are not aware on Stearns, Billy Beane, the connection or lack thereof they've had with the Mets and their search for a new president of baseball operations. What are the potential fits and options next for the Mets now outside of those two? Some updates on some Dodgers executives that we discussed on the channel previously, and so much more. So again, make sure you guys chime in, check out the live stream, whether you're watching this live or on replay, and know that we very much appreciate you guys being here. I see Thomas, I see Legend, Legendary Watermelon, Blacklist Outdoors, my man, how are you doing? So happy to see you, buddy. I was actually going to shoot you a text soon, so I'm happy to have you in here. Sherwood, Chris, Nathan, Al, AB, all you guys, Insanity, Cruising, Samuel, Butta, everybody, Levi, Jack, great member on the channel, all you that are just chiming in. Yes, we have a lot to break down here, and I want to make things clear first and foremost. This is not the Mets' fault, okay? And this is something that I feel a lot of people that are unaware on what's been going on with the Mets for a while now are going to simply target and say, oh, the Mets, of course, they didn't land either of these guys. They're an absolute joke. They can't get anyone. No, this is not the Mets' fault here, and I'm really happy that they showed consideration. And while these definitely were never a 100% likely scenarios, especially for two of the three, that being in Theo Epstein and David Stearns, it's important for them to weigh their options and at least try to make an effort. And if it does not come to fruition, okay. There's reasons why the Mets have numerous options, and while it may be a fairly short list to what we know, it doesn't necessarily mean that's what the Mets are currently working with. So again, that's what we're going to be getting into today. So I'll be taking a lot of questions and comments throughout the live stream towards the end as well. But I really want to start things off, folks. Again, everybody that's first chiming in, what has happened with the Mets today? So in case you're not aware, in case you've been living under a rock, the first report that first came out earlier today, which was from Joel Sherman, who covers the Mets through the New York Post, came out with an article stating that, yes, the Mets were denied access from the Milwaukee Brewers to interview their star-studded 36-year-old, young, vibrant, and still very exciting and promising president of baseball operations, and David Stearns. David Stearns, quick background on him if you guys are not aware. Again, grew up a diehard Mets fan, started out his career working in an MLB organization with the Mets briefly, and has since went on to really grow something strong there in Milwaukee. And after another year of disappointment for the Brewers, falling short in playoffs to the Braves and the NLDS, they have now found themselves out of playoffs and have once again, for the second year in a row, denied the Mets access to even consider the possibility of interviewing David Stearns. Now, the reasons for this, again, and is the reason for it from the original time this took place, because remember, folks, if we backtrack a year ago, as I said in my video that I now put down, because I'm going to reiterate it here, and I've said it a lot in live streams, right? David Stearns was a potential fit for the Mets last offseason when Steve Cohen and Sandy Alderson first came in as part of this new regime, and they were denied access back then, a year ago, from ownership for the Brewers. Now here we are fast forwarding things a year later, and the Brewers have done that same exact thing. And I really don't think I need to expand too much on this outside of what you guys know by now, and that is the fact that this would have been a lateral move, folks. In case you're unaware of what I'm referring to, normally when a top executive of a opposing organization is being sought after by another team, the only real likelihood of that person being pried away from that fellow organization most likely is because it's a promotion, meaning that, say, a guy is in a GM role and he's being moved up to president of baseball operations, assistant GM to GM, something along those lines. And normally opposing teams are fully willing to give access to interviews, knowing that I'm not going to hold you away from getting an interview on a promotion, something that you wouldn't have here in our current organization. But this, with a lateral move, meant that the Mets would only be hiring David Stearns for the same exact position that he is currently in with Milwaukee. So that was a big red flag from the beginning, and that's why I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Stearns was never a strong likelihood whatsoever. It was a pipe dream pick. Talking about a guy that's going to have longevity in his career. He's only 36 and he's running the show for Milwaukee. That's insane. And they're going to continue to have great success under him as long as they extend his contract past this upcoming season, if you guys don't know. But now getting into David Stearns wasn't a strong likelihood. Can't blame the Mets at all. I'm happy that they at least put forth a certain amount of effort to make it happen. But now getting into what exactly has happened here with Billy Beane. Well, as reported through Ken Rosenthal over the past hour at the time being live today, is that Billy Beane has took his name out of consideration for the Mets and a president of baseball operations position. Now, this is unfortunate. This is something that I would be lying if I said I'm not at least a little upset about. And while Billy Beane never felt like a sure thing, there's been more optimism with him than anyone else from what we've seen. Theo Epstein, there wasn't great optimism outside of speculation. That was shot down very quick. David Stearns, same thing, very unlikely. Billy Beane, yes, you have hurdles knowing that you're going to have to give up some type of compensation to acquire him, knowing he still has control on his contract under the A's and has, I believe, a 4% stake and ownership, minority ownership in the Oakland A's organization. There's been recent reports through SNY to indicate that very close friends to Billy Beane have indicated that he's open and interested possibility in the joining Mets. But again, a lot of hurdles need to happen. And now I don't know exactly if we're going to find out further reports as to why exactly Billy Beane took his name out of the running, but he has in fact done so. So he's no longer an option for the Mets. And before I go further, I think what is really important for Mets fans to realize is that just because names have been floated out there for the past month or so does not mean that this is for certain going to happen. The last video we did on the channel was on Billy Beane seeming like the early favorite, and I stood by that because there was more optimism with him than anyone else that's been reported. And now that has obviously changed over the coming days. I'm glad it did now versus, to say, really dragging out and causing the Mets problems with interviewing other people from opposing organizations. But we have to realize, and this is something that I'm continuing to realize, and I've been very wary of since last offseason. Doesn't matter if the Mets are connected to a player, whether that's a free agent or a trade target. Doesn't matter if it's an opposing executive. Nothing is certain until there's pen and paper and that deal actually happens. A trade, a signing, whatever it's going to be. And I feel like a lot of people, unfortunately, have gotten themselves so invested in the things that have simply been reported, even if they're factual or not. And now they find themselves viewing that, oh, this is the end all, when it's not. It's not even remotely close. And again, I was someone who really was excited about Billy Beane, that potential. I think it's unfortunate that he's out of the running for the Mets. But again, there's been other reports to indicate that Beane is getting very close to be working on things outside of the MLB that he's been working on. And there's even rumors to circulate that he might be looking for potential ownership at some other type of baseball type company. So there's a lot of reasons as to why Billy Beane is not leaving Oakland as of now. There's a lot of reasons as to why he will not be coming to the Mets, just like there were plenty of reasons to indicate why he could. But this all started from a hypothetical report that Ken Rosenthal originally came out with over the past 2 months. And he's the reason why all this Billy Beane speculation and hype started with, and he's the reason now why it's ending. So if there's anyone that you want to say pinpoint on getting your hopes up, if you will, you should look at the people that are throwing these ideas out there. Maybe don't have enough substance, but you got to understand when it comes to these big names, it's always going to be propelled to another level more than it probably should if there hasn't been an actual formal interview yet, among other things. So in a nutshell, it's unfortunate. I really would have loved to see Billy Beane with the Mets, but there are plenty of other options out there that I'm just as excited about, if not more excited, given the age and the flexibility the Mets will have. So before I get to that, I want to thank everyone so much that's chiming into the Breaking News live stream. If you guys are enjoying, again, please make sure to smash that like and subscribe on. We're trying to get to 10,000 subscribers for our next goal on the channel. Thank you so much in advance. Dave, how's it going? Great friend and subscriber on the channel. Hope you're doing well. Thomas making some comments about Burns, Gomes. Yes, we'll be getting into them in a second. You're always optimistic, Corey. Of course I'm optimistic. You absolutely have to be an optimist with so many reasons. I'm not going to be a pessimist regarding this. Burns is the best option left besides Scott and Harris. Yeah, we'll be getting into those shortly. Good thoughts there from Thomas. Great member and friend on the channel. I think we got the Dodgers guys, Burns and his guy. Okay, that's fair. Those sports reporters make up stuff just to get something to write about. A bunch of believe nothing. Hey, let me put it this way. Do I think Ken Rosenthal made a hypothetical report strictly to hype everything up to fall short? No, I don't think that is true whatsoever. I do think that there was some substance to the situation with Billy Beane, but it's obvious that was never significant enough for things to get to that next level for an interview. And I would just like to give one actual kudos to, and this is probably something that I'm going to bite my tongue on in the offseason when it falls through and things go awry for him. But Andy Martino, someone who I've been unbelievably critical about, who covers the Mets and Yankees through SNY. You know, Martino is a guy that most fans do not enjoy, and I'd be lying if I said I wasn't one of them. But he has been right on the money with everything so far this offseason. He said over the past couple of days that it was beyond unlikely from reports from his sources that he was hearing that Beane and Stearns, you know, they would not be coming to the Mets. And that ended up holding true. So the sources that Martino has is very much accurate to this point, what we've seen this offseason. So feel free to have a personal opinion about him all you want. I'm not someone that's in favor of Martino at all, but I give him kudos for actually being accurate here. Something that has been lackadaisical. The Mets have lacked overall, I feel, the past year. It really has been. And everyone's been at fault. He's been at fault endless times. So many reporters have been at fault. But it all comes down to whose sources are going to be more accurate in the end. And so far, so good for Andy when it comes to this offseason. So I would just like to shout that out. I'm not someone that's going to strictly rag on a person if he's had only the wrong sources. If he's gotten things right, I'm going to acknowledge that too. So I just want to throw that out there. That takes a lot coming from me. From the things that I have openly said and critiqued about Martino, along with plenty of other reporters in the game of baseball. But now getting back to, okay, you're talking about Stearns, you're talking about Beane. These two guys are out. They're no longer an option, right? So what are your options now? Well, someone that I was planning to talk about potentially tonight in a different live stream that didn't happen because we're breaking right now is Brandon Gomes. Brandon Gomes that we've talked about in a previous video on the channel. That link is in the description down below. Make sure you check it out if you haven't already. Is the assistant GM to the LA Dodgers, and he has quickly worked himself up in arguably the biggest organization in all baseball in LA since being an MLB player, just 5 years removed now. But where reports have indicated, because the Mets have been reportedly connected to Gomes as potentially either a GM fit or even a president baseball operations fit, even though GM felt more realistic, giving he's only an assistant GM, that would have been a big leap, is that the Dodgers are willing and prepared to promote Gomes within the LA organization to prohibit him from parting ways with the club. So if that does in fact hold true, again, we do not know to this point, but I've seen numerous reports to indicate that might be the direction that is happening. If so, then you can cross Brandon Gomes off the list. All I'm saying is basically don't get your hopes up on Gomes, because that is a report that very well can come into fruition, but we probably won't know for certain until the season is done for the Dodgers, whether that's them getting kicked out of the NLCS as they're down 2 games to the Braves right now. Yeah, wow in itself, or the fact of them winning the World Series, losing the World Series. Whenever their season's done, we're going to hear a lot about the Dodgers. And the Mets have been connected to LA for a while now for multiple reasons. And the main thing is Steve Cohen, when he came into ownership for the New York Mets, said he wants this to be the East Coast Dodgers. This is something he's idolized for a while. If my memory's not mistaken, Steve Cohen even actually tried to be the next owner of the Dodgers years ago before they were then bought by Magic Johnson. So Steve Cohen has always had a good connection with the Dodgers. He wants the Mets to adopt a very similar, if not same philosophy in a lot of ways with how you run your organization, and rightfully so, given the continued success they've had, winning their first World Series in a while last year in the short year, but just being a dominant force to be reckoned with year in and year out. But outside of Brandon Gomes, who reportedly, from what we've seen, had a heavy say in the trade deadline acquisitions and making that deal happen for the Dodgers, that being Max Scherzer and Trey Turner, to name a few. But going now to Josh Stearns, who is a very intriguing fit as well. He is someone to this point that is really the only other reported name that has been out there that there is substance to, outside of everything else just being speculation and putting two and two together. Maybe they're names that we'll see reportedly connected to the Mets eventually. Maybe we will never know exactly who the Mets land in these positions until it is actually out there and done with. The Mets may act stealthy. They might not want anything to actually trickle out there with other people they're considering. But Josh Stearns, who we discussed in our previous Dodgers video, has a beyond reliable and credible resume where you see what he is currently doing with the LA Dodgers. He is the vice president, senior VP of president of baseball operations for LA, and has been a huge driving force into their player development program. He has led to the success of many young players in the Dodgers organization. He has been a big help also during his time with the Arizona Diamondbacks and the Padres, and drafting guys, whether that be even, yes, Max Scherzer. If you're going down the list too, I'm trying to think, was he part of? No, he wasn't part of Trey Turner. I'm trying to think. There was Max Fried. There was Max Scherzer. There was Pollock, who's on the Dodgers right now, and multiple other players too. I'm just blanking on a couple. I talked about that in more detail in my Dodgers video, but he is a guy that I am very much in favor of. And Josh Stearns, as of now, would probably be my personal favorite, given what has been reported and rumored out there. But there are a lot of different names that I like. I'm on the list that you see here that we are also going to be getting into for a decent portion of the live stream, between not just Josh Stearns, who again has been reportedly connected to the Mets that we've talked about in previous videos and live streams. Michael Hill, who's someone that I have a decent amount to say about because I don't understand the realism behind it. Michael Hill was considered for the same exact job for the Mets a year ago and ended up falling short. Michael Hill used to be a part of the Miami Marlins organization. He was previously their GM from 2007 to 2013. So I don't love the idea of Michael Hill just because if it fell through with the Mets last year, why would this year be a better look, a better indication of anything? That's something that, again, we'll find out whether that's holding true or not. Thad Levin is another guy that's been that is rumored out there. I know Joe DeMaio, along with plenty of other Mets minds, are throwing out potential fits. If you guys don't know, Thad Levin is part of the Minnesota Twins organization. Levin, to this point, is their senior VP and general manager. Scott Harris, who is the GM for the San Francisco Giants. Matt Arnold, who is the GM for the Milwaukee Brewers, among others, are all names that have been floated out there as rumored picks. Now, these are rumored, meaning that you should not bet the house on them, that they will, in fact, come to fruition or anything of that nature. So keep that in mind. But these are some names that are being floated out there. We will expand more on this. But before I go further, I really just want to make clear again, the Mets were never at fault for going after those big three, and Theo, Beane, and Stearns. Is it unfortunate that they were not able to land any of the three? Yes, I think that's fair. I think that is absolutely fair to be at least a little bit upset that they were not able to land any of them. But am I blaming the New York Mets for not landing any of them? Hell to the no. And I'm sorry if you guys are in disagreement. Everyone's entitled to your own opinion. But the Mets simply had no other choice here but to at least consider the notion to try and get an interview done. And I'm really happy that they at least did that. It's not their fault that these guys are not an option for the Mets. Theo didn't make sense after we broke that down previously. Stearns, not an option because that's a lateral move. Beane, that's someone that had a lot of hurdles you had to get through to begin with. But I'm looking to see what the further details will be, if at all. Again, that's something that might just end with the Mets, with Beane saying that, I want my name out of the running, and that's that. I don't know if we'll find out further details. We might. There has been a lot of other consideration. There are people in the chat right now saying David Wright. Wright, I don't see happening unless there's an actual report that comes out. Wright just does not make any sense for the Mets, given he has no interest. You know, people want David Wright as a manager. People want David Wright as a GM, this and that. The guy needs experience. David Wright is the farthest thing from reality, if you're asking for my personal opinion. So I do not see David Wright even remotely close as an option. I like optimism. I love David, but maybe that's someone that could be ingrained in the Mets organization further going down the line. But no. The Mets need people established right now that have success and are going to continue to have success. And a proper counter that I think you can make here in regards to not landing someone like Billy Beane in particular is, okay, you didn't land Billy. It would have been great if you got him. But now what are you looking at? Who's the next Billy Beane, right? Who are executives in the game today that very well could be a great fit? Now, the Mets have been connected to great minds that are more analytically driven. The most recent being Chaim Bloom, when the Mets considered him for the GM job from Tampa Bay. A couple years ago, they went with Brody Van Wagenen, a guy who had no experience and was a player agent. So that was the Wilpons era. But Chaim Bloom would have been a fantastic pick in hindsight, seeing what he's done now with the Boston Red Sox, which he's single-handedly helped construct that lineup tremendously in that overall organization, how it's run. The Mets need to have that same approach now, but actually land a guy that's analytically driven. That's why I am very much enticed by Brandon Gomes. I really like Josh Stearns. Some of the names out here, Scott Harris, I'm not against Arnold and Levin, but the natural concern here is, okay, what is the likelihood of any of these guys coming to the Mets? We simply don't have an answer to that right now. And you also have to notice that of the ones I mentioned between Harris, Arnold, and Levin, these are guys that are current GMs. So they would be moving up. So there is further potential versus a lateral move, which is what David Stearns was originally. So if you're going to get a guy like, I don't know, let's say hypothetically Sky Harris for San Fran, right? You approach him, you have to interview him because you want him not a GM, but as a president of baseball operations. Maybe you have him as both. That's potential too. All that I care about most, and I know that I've seen counters on social media, and we're going to be getting to that shortly again. I've seen people, including Joe DeMayo and others, say that the Mets, they don't need a president of baseball ops. They don't. You're right. But it directly counteracts what Sandy Alderson has said going into the offseason, which is that a president of baseball operations is a priority. It's what we're trying to get done first and foremost. It would be foolish, in my opinion, for the Mets to go not 1, but 2 years in a row without a president of baseball ops, mainly because if there is any situation where you bring in a GM that maybe there's a lack of uncertainty with what his role is going to be. Take a Zack Scott, for instance, with him having to part ways because of the DUI and all that stuff. You do not want Sandy to get involved in your day-to-day operations, nor does Sandy want to be involved in your day-to-day operations. This is something that a lot of people in comments on the channel all the time say, oh, Sandy's running everything. He's doing this. He's doing that. He doesn't want to. It's been open. There's a reason why the Mets are trying to pursue and get hires for president of baseball ops, because Sandy should have his hands out of things, with the exception of whoever he hires wanting him to be actively involved. But even then, that's a stretch. That's not something the Mets are trying to go down, and that isn't something that Sandy Alderson actually has interest in. He's older. He just wants to be the guy making the hires and overseeing things. We want a president of baseball operations that's going to help handle day-to-day, along with the GM, that connection. Now, again, Brandon Gomes, I'm a big fan of from everything that I've learned about him. A young, great mind that's so early removed from the game of baseball. I think that would be fantastic, given how much he's done in a very short period of time for the Dodgers. I'm not saying it's likely, though, given the fact that he might already be ruled out if he is, in fact, going to be promoted through the Dodgers organization shortly once the season's done. That very well can happen. Josh Stearns would be my favorite as of now, but a lot of more names are going to be trickled out there. So until we find out exactly what the new reports are, if at all, this is what we're working with. We're more on a hypothetical approach versus a reported approach. If more names come out there that are reported, then we will discuss them when that time is right and when it happens. But until then, we're just going with speculation, hypotheticals right now. And with saying that, I'm going to be taking some comments now that I'm seeing in the live stream. If you're watching this live, reacting here, seeing your questions, answering them, and then I'll be expanding some more on each of the individuals that we have as potential options here outside of Josh Stearns, because we already kind of beat a dead horse there, unless you guys have a specific question about him. But Dave Kaplowitz with the $2 donation. Thank you so much for that, Dave. I really appreciate it. Burns is now the guy. I think he's a guy. Yes, he's definitely a guy I'm enticed by, but I'm not trying to get my hopes up just because of the fact that it seems like anytime you get too committed on one thing for any offseason, not just for the Mets, but for anyone else, it falls through. So I'm being very open-minded here. I'm not getting too attached or too, I'm not going to be a betting man. Let's put it that way. I'm not going to bet the house on any of these things. Nor am I going to really bet the house on players either. When it comes to the Mets parting ways with guys, keeping guys, trading for guys, signing for guys, you have to have a very different approach with this going forward. If the past year of watching the Mets and their offseason hasn't taught us anything, it's definitely that we need to be taking each step with caution, being wary of our surroundings, if that makes any sense. Thank you again for the donation, though, Dave. I appreciate that. Greg says, I feel as though the people are acting as if the sky is falling. Yeah, no, I'm not acting as the sky is falling at all. It's just unfortunate, and it builds a narrative when this is something that the Mets did nothing wrong here. They did absolutely nothing wrong. There's nothing that they did in approaching Theo, Beane, and Stearns that I don't like. Why wouldn't you want them to approach those big names? By all means, go for it. Now, whether they land them or not, it's a different story. They're not landing them, but I'm happy that they at least considered it. It's better to weigh those options and push forward to them be denied versus not even give an attempt at all. So I really appreciate that from the Mets. That was important in my eyes with how they are evaluating this offseason, and they have plenty of time. They have plenty of ways to figure out here, and they might very well be waiting until Dodgers are full on out of playoffs. So we'll see how much the Dodgers run goes on in the 2021 playoffs here for the MLB. That could be a huge factor. Dodgers could be the team that the Mets are connected to the most. Worry for Mets manager? That's funny. That's really funny. I appreciate the kind words, though. I feel like our expectations are too high with Cohen. We're not attractive at the moment. The team is a mess. Very few will want this job. I disagree with the notion that the Mets aren't attractive. I think that's a fallacy. I really do. The Mets are beyond attractive. You have to realize that everyone that the Mets have been going after, there's been so many obvious reasons as to why they were more of a pipe dream than realistic. With the guys that they will be connected to, I do not, let me put it this way. Among the people that the Mets will be considering going forward for President Baseball Operations and GM, the likelihood of them being denied access to an interview for a certain person completely outweighs the likelihood of that person not wanting to take a promotion in the Mets organization. That just is, I stand by that notion. I do not think that the Mets are unattractive at all. They've had a lot of things going wrong, don't get me wrong, and this is something where you need to be ready for the New York market, and not everyone's interested in that in general, and that needs to be noted as well. But there are a lot of people that will be interested in this role, and there are a lot of people that I'm sure are interested. It's just a matter of getting those interviews in, and we'll see exactly when they start to roll out. Okay, the Mets have been calling around, basically putting together a long list past their top 3 and seeing who's available, interested. I've heard several names, can confirm Doug Melvin and Bobby Heck. Oh, and that is reported from Will Carroll. Okay, let's go on Twitter quick, folks, and let's look up this report, shall we? Ooh, okay. This is also further through Michael Mayer, folks. You know what? Let's switch screens here. And by the way, folks, help us. We're only 20 likes away from 50 already in the stream. So if you haven't already, smash that like and subscribe on. Really means a lot, folks. And thank you so much for the continued support. We're trying to get to 100 before the end of the stream. Let's go to this report by Will Carroll, rookie card guy. Thank you so much for bringing that up. Perfect timing, too, before we expand on these proposed picks that I brought you all here for potential options, right? Okay, let's go here. All right, folks, as you see here, this was originally reported. Michael Mayer, who covers the Mets through Metsmerize, does a great job, has reliable sources. And he was also one that said it was very unlikely that Billy Beane would be coming to the Mets before really anyone else was saying it. So shout out to Michael. His sources held true in the end, even though it felt like a foregone conclusion to a certain extent based on who you're referring to, that the Mets have discussed hiring Doug Melvin. We'll be looking up Doug Melvin's resume in a second. This is an interesting pick as well. Let's go on to see if this is Will Carroll. It is. Okay, going on to Will Carroll's Twitter here. Bobby Heck was a name that blew my mind. Oh, okay. Okay, here we go. Will Carroll a couple days ago, guys, if you aren't aware, on Twitter said, he's been hearing a lot of names rumbling out there as potential fits. And he said that one really blew his mind, and that is Bobby Heck was the name that blew his mind. Super capable, great baseball mind, awesome scout, has been with Wayne organizations. I was surprised he'd be mentioned for player baseball operations role when he hasn't been GM. Not that I don't think he'd be a good fit, just surprise. I will say, however, I'm going to look up the resumes for them both here, but just because the Mets could approach him for GM versus president baseball operations if he hasn't even been a GM before, I don't know. So we're going to get into that here now, folks. And shout out to everybody that gave the hints and not the hints, everyone that updated me in the stream. I'm glad it's happening while we're doing this breaking news coverage versus right after I stopped the live stream. That would have sucked. Is he related to Bob Melvin? I don't believe he is. I do think the Mets still are considering Bob Melvin, however, regardless of the Billy Beane factor. At least that's what SNY reported. Take that as you will. I think Bob Melvin would be a star-studded pickup manager for the Mets, but they're worried about president baseball operations and GM before anything else. Mike, what's up, my man? No need to apologize. Happy to have you, buddy. Great member on the channel. Okay, so Doug Melvin was the former GM for the Brewers from 2002 to 2015. He is currently the senior advisor for Milwaukee. Okay, so there's still a lot of connections to the Brew Crew. So with saying that, let's actually add on here some more names. And Doug, I'm going to be frank with you. I don't have a crazy background on Doug Melvin. I'm doing like any other normal fan will. Go on Wikipedia, break him down, figure out what he's been like. I don't have an insane background knowledge on higher execs from all these opposing organizations. I'm involved with the Mets first and foremost than anyone else. So give me 1 second, folks. I'm actually going to pull this up now. And everybody in the chat right now, I know you guys have a lot of comments, questions, and concerns. Let me know what your initial reaction is to this report, should it hold true. That being on Doug Melvin and Bobby Heck being connected to the Mets now as potential options for President Baseball ops. Let me know in the chat what your background is, if at all. If you like it, if you don't like it, let me hear it, folks, as I'm just doing something real quick. I don't have a clue about any. Where's Lagares? Lagares hasn't been on the Mets in years, my man. He's been with the LA Angels this past year. Jeff Lunau doesn't seem likely. I did some research on Lunau. To this point, unless we get reports to come out, I don't think Lunau is much of an option at all. Things could be worse. We could have Hal Steimer for owner. Gerald, I know you asked about Mike Schilt too. I'll probably just answer your comments from one of the videos. I'm going to talk about Schilt and other potential managerial candidates in a further live stream. I just want to hone in right now on President Baseball Ops. Just sub. Thank you so much for the sub, Michael. I appreciate that. Okay, so getting into Doug Melvin, folks. let's look up his resume here. So Doug Melvin has been the senior advisor for the Milwaukee Brewers. He was originally their longtime GM from 2002 to 2015. So he's been very renowned in the organization for the Milwaukee Brewers. He used to be a minor league pitcher according to Wikipedia, because again, I don't have a great background on him. Just being honest with you guys, I think that's the best way to go about things. With the Pirates and the Yankees farm systems in the early to late 70s. His first general manager position was with the Texas Rangers from 1994 to 2001. The Rangers qualified for the postseason 3 times during that span. The only times the franchise had done that in their history. Melvin spent 2002 as a consultant for the Boston Red Sox before taking the reins in Milwaukee. Ooh, interesting. That's right as it was the changing of the guards because in 2002, that's when Billy Beane was offered to be their next longtime GM in Boston. He said no, denied the $12.5 million contract that would have made him the highest paid GM in all of sports at the time. And then 2 years later, they won their first World Series in a long time, that being under the new and rising Theo Epstein. I was thinking Melvin's A's coach. Yeah, everyone is. But no. This is Doug Melvin, not Bob Melvin. But let's get into Bobby Heck, because I don't. Let's get into Bobby Heck. Worry for GM? Yeah, maybe in a couple decades. In my dreams, right? It's funny. Oh, Bobby Heck is the special assistant to the GM for the Tampa Bay Rays. Sign me up. I'm already on board. Already on board, baby. Already on board. So again, according to reports from what we've seen today, through Will Carroll. Will Carroll is an MLB writer as well. He came out saying that Bobby Heck has been the surprise name that I've seen. Oh, okay. And there's another name that has come out as well. Dorian Boylan is another name. Is the most interesting name on Mets list. And there's more than 3 I mentioned. Boylan is a former player who's become CEO of National Car Dealership. Certainly has interesting background, though I don't know anything beyond some articles. There's no way. Okay, Dorian better not even be consideration. I don't know. That does not sound good. And guys, if you don't know, Doug Melvin was a finalist last time around for the Mets GM, I believe. Is that what Michael Mayer tweeted out? Let me double check. I believe that was the case. Hold on, folks. I'm doing my investigative journalism. I'm just going on Twitter for you all. Yes. Okay. Yes. He was a finalist for a GM job. Then they hired Brody. So the Mets have they had a lot of really good GM options back a couple years ago, and they really won with Brody Van Wagenen. What absolute schmucks the Will Ponzi regime was. My goodness gracious. Wow. That's infuriating, to be quite honest with you. But again, it's over. It's done with. So the Mets, from what I'm seeing here, did have a lot of really good options, and they're being circled back now with some of the guys that they were considering for GM a couple years ago. So Doug Melvin is a guy that looks like he has a very strong resume, especially being a long time now in the Brewers organization. Brewers, great organization, knows actually how to run the team analytically and with the day-to-day baseball ops, using the eye test and the numbers, balancing it. They just don't have, the type of market that the Mets will, for instance, when it comes to actual payroll that they can use. Bobby Heck, again, very, very interesting name here. I like this quite a bit as a special assistant to the GM for the Tampa Bay Rays. So The natural hurdle for a guy like Bobby Heck is the fact that he's never been a full GM in the league. So the Mets would have to put him in president of baseball operations, is what the reports are indicating, at least the assumptions here, when that is someone who hasn't even been a full-time GM before. So that's quite the leap. But yeah, I'm intrigued. Let me put it this way. Out of all the names that the Mets have been considered of, connected to, the only one that I'm not in love with is the latest one that was reported along with both Doug Melvin and Bobby Heck, and that is pardon me, I'm trying to find it now. Is Dorian. These are for president baseball operations, right? Yes, that's the belief right now. There's been nothing to indicate otherwise right now. Yes, that is the belief. Texas John Daniel, that's all just been speculative. I know that John Heyman threw out John Daniel as a name. Daniels, that's been a name considered. There hasn't been anything of substance though. But again, similar to a lot of these potential options right now, they don't have a lot of substance behind them either. So I think that it's fair. But all Rangers fans want John Daniel out of there in Texas. So if that's not indication that the Mets probably shouldn't go down that route, I don't know what is. Right? Can't wait for the days of the offseason where we just sit here and live stream waiting for the Mets to sign somebody. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that, Ryan. It's going to be a lot of fun. Someone from the Rays organization would be ideal. I agree with you. What's up, Larry? Great member on the channel. Hope you're doing well. Send your resume in, Leroy. Tell me what happens. I think if Josh Burns gets the job, I'd rather him as GM. I don't think that's going to happen given what Josh Burns' current role as senior VP of president baseball ops would assumably be higher to a certain extent than GM. So I don't necessarily see Burns as coming in as GM here. Anything's possible. There's potential here for sure, but I'm going to go with the belief that Burns would come in as president of baseball ops. Not sure if I would feel superior to Mets fans with Brian Cashman as their GM or not. Yeah, Cashman is a big question mark. I have no clue what's happening on his front. I have a feeling Mets will hire Beltran again as the next manager, but for GM, no idea. Okay. Did he draft Burns and Woodruff? Let's go into that. I don't. Wow. Okay, Melvin's a two-time executive of the year winner in the MLB. Once in 1996 as GM for the Rangers, and then in 2011 as being the GM for the Brewers. So he does have a really good resume. I'm not sure what his drafting back. I would assume. Yeah, he has to be. He has to be given when they were drafted. Hold on. Yeah, if Burns was drafted prior to 2015 or at the latest 2015, then yeah, it looks like he was part of that as well. So sorry. Oh, Skinny, no need to apologize, my man. No worries. Again, thank you so much for just considering it. That means a lot. You know, your mom has good reason for you not to want to send that away. I didn't realize that was a circumstance, and I would have told you no from the beginning then. So again, I appreciate it no less. I wonder when they'll have a decision before the free market opens, before spring training, before the year ends. The Mets will have a president of baseball operations and a GM hire, assumably. I would really hope that they would have one done by the latest, towards the end of the first week of November. They should, the next week or two should be huge. But again, their connection to the Dodgers organization will prohibit them if they're waiting to get those interviews done. Anthony, my man. If you guys don't know Anthony from Subway to Shea, please make sure to check him out. Great friend. He's been on the channel before for helping out on live streams, having discussions. Yes, I'm very much interested in Burns too. He does have a great resume when it comes to drafting for sure. What's the consensus now that Stearns and Beane are out? Says Jack. The consensus now from what everything looks like is that there's other options out there for the Mets as we have them listed right here. And I think this is not limited. I think there are other options beyond this as well that we simply aren't talking about. Some of them are reported and some of them are strictly speculatory to this point. But all in all, I think what I'm most excited and happy about in regards to the Mets search right now is I genuinely am in favor of the majority here. There's only a select one or two where they wouldn't be like my favorite picks, but a lot of these guys are beyond qualified, have great resumes, and know how to balance not just the eye test, but analytics in their day-to-day run of baseball operations. And I think that's really important. Yes, Billy Beane is out of the running. Correct, Ed. He is done. I'd say forget Dodgers guys and talk to people that I don't have to wait for. That's fair, but the counterpoint is that if you rush it, you could miss out on potentially the best option of them all. So do the Mets view someone like a Josh Burns and or Brandon Gomes as the top tier of what they're looking for now that Beane, Theo, and Stearns are out? Potentially. And the Mets side of things, while they definitely need to get these hires in fairly soon, I do not want them to rush things, if that makes sense. I do not want them to make hires for the sake of making hires. You need to make the right hires. If that extends a little bit longer than maybe we would like, then okay. But I want them to make the proper hires. Do not just make them for the sake of making them and saying, okay, we're done with that. Theo is out because I broke that down in previous live stream on the channel, so definitely check it out if you haven't. You can see Theo is on the thumbnail. But Billy Beane, we don't know the details as to why he's out, but there's been a lot of hurdles that would indicate that it wasn't a strong likelihood from the beginning with Billy. I will say, however, there was far more optimism with him than anyone else that we've seen at this point among those big three that the Mets were connected to. I like the idea of Bobby Heck as GM with Melvin as President of Baseball Operations, or Melvin as GM and Burns as President of Baseball Operations. Got a package coming your way? Oh, Thomas, my man, thank you so much. You didn't tell me about that. I don't know what that is, but I appreciate that a lot. So thank you, Thomas. Thank you, buddy. I appreciate that a lot. Okay, let's get a little bit further here. I want to get some more background on Bobby Heck. It's weird. They're like, isn't even a Wikipedia for Bobby Heck. There's a LinkedIn. I don't want to go to his LinkedIn now. I want to see if you had a Wikipedia breakdown, but there literally isn't even a Wikipedia page for him, I don't think. Yeah, Bobby Heck is still the special assistant to the GM to this point. I would assume he's more of a GM candidate as well, Edgar. But from the report, again, this is according to the report from Will Carroll, at least, is that he's being considered for president of baseball ops. So that's a jump. Now, is that going to hold true? We'll find out. But again, it's not something I'm completely betting on. I'm just intrigued to see his name in the consideration. Victor, thank you so much for the subscription. Hype in the chat for Victor, a new sub. Happy to have you here, my man. Let's go Mets. Yes, a lot. You're going to see endless content here, guys. There was a video that was supposed to come out today. It will not be coming out today. It will most likely be coming out tomorrow, so stay tuned for that. A lot of big videos coming out of the channel over the next week, 2 weeks, really, that are just separate, not necessarily focused on breaking news stuff, just in general with the Mets. A lot of fun conversations too that we've done previously, like our collab with Jolly Olive among some others. So yeah, I'll expect more top 5 videos to come out on the channel very soon regarding various subjects. Dusty Baker hasn't won either. You're right. Dusty's been to the dance, but he's never won it all yet. Yeah, he has a great resume. He just has not gone over that hump as a manager. And again, thank you for the donation, though. Really appreciate that, Larry. Hype in the chat for Larry with the donation. That means a lot. Dave, Mets should go with a young president baseball operations GM. Oh yeah, that's me. Dave, thank you. At least we'll trade for Buxton. Yes, if there's anything I can guarantee you is that we will get Buxton. Even if I sell the farm for him, we will get Buxton. Yes, I know you guys probably wouldn't want me as GM then, but yeah, all jokes aside, I appreciate you. Who's my ideal free agent pick? I've already listed a lot of those in my previous videos, so definitely check them out if you haven't already, especially the hour-long episode we did with Jolly. But I'll expand on that more once the time comes, once it's warranted, once we get into more rumor streams and stuff like that. It's still premature, I would say. I've talked about them a lot, though. If you just check those out, and you'll know kind of who I've been in favor of, at least. I feel like we haven't had one guy that stayed in the front office for a long period of time for a while. Feel like this is going to be the same. Mets are definitely going to rush it. I wouldn't bet on the Mets rushing it. I do think the Mets have a lot of, and I mean a lot of great options here. Again, I think the beauty about this situation more than anything, folks, is that I'm intrigued. I like a lot of these names here. I really do. There's only, again, two. Michael Hill just feels, this is all hypothetical, speculative. I think there's better options than Michael Hill just from what we've seen. Same thing goes to a certain extent with what was it, Dorian Boylan, that was connected through Will Carroll. Again, we'll see how much that holds true or not. I'm not betting the house on that at all. But I love the fact that the Mets are connected to a lot of these different names, a lot of analytically driven names too that could potentially be the next quote unquote Billy Beane, if you will. Not even the next Billy Beane, just the next themselves. I want someone that's going to come in and have longevity with this organization. Okay, guys, this is according to Michael Mayer again. He just tweeted this out, and this might be an indication that the Mets. Okay, this is interesting. Okay, according to Michael Mayer, folks, this just tweet out. Shout out Michael from Mets Rise. Tweet out the following quick Mets front office notes. Epstein, Beane, and Stearns not coming, as we know. Mets really like Brandon Gomes, though Dodgers might promote him to GM. So it looks like the Mets, between the two and Brandon Gomes and Josh Burns, the Mets are favoring Brandon Gomes, if his sources are holding true, which so far this offseason for Michael's case they have. Mets aren't optimistic about Josh Burns. Remember, aren't optimistic. This is just coming out through Michael Mayer. So for all of us that have been wanting Josh Burns, I really like Josh Burns a lot. Like anything else, just don't bet the house on it. Because if this holds true, if they're not optimistic, there's a reason for it. So keep that in mind. Maybe that's because they don't want him to be their first choice. We don't know. But Josh Burns, again, according to Michael Mayer, the Mets are not optimistic on at this point in time. Doug Melvin is back in the mix. Mets haven't asked to interview Bobby Heck yet, but could circle back. Okay, that is the latest on this front, folks. Dave with the $5 super sticker. Thank you so much for that, my man. Hype in the chat for Dave with the $5 dono. That means a lot. Thank you so much for that, buddy. Stealing other teams' present baseball operations was never realistic. I'm aware. That's why I never thought Stearns was realistic. Who's your top pick now that we are past the big names? I really like Josh Burns, but he might be not realistic according to what Michael Mayer has reported through Metsmerized. Really like Brandon Gomes as well, but he might be getting promoted in the Dodgers organization. Other names I like, I'm interested in Bobby Heck. I'm interested in potentially one of Levin, Harris, or Arnold to a certain extent. Doug Melvin, I don't hate. I'm not necessarily in love with, but I don't hate it for sure. I don't really have a top pick. It's kind of Josh Burns, but I'm not betting a house on it. I think I said that already. I'll say that again. What's a POBO? POBO is short for present baseball operations, Wolf. Mets were rushing it. They would already have a hire. Yes, exactly. because they could have been doing plenty of interviews already. Is there a universe where Correa, Lindor, and Baez play for the Mets? I'm not going to answer these kind of questions in today's live stream. Yes, there is a universe. Is it likely? No, but there is a universe. Yes. I'm curious now, though, if what the reports have indicated are true between now, not having optimism about Burns and Gomes getting promoted. Could the Mets be starting the interview process very soon if they feel that they don't really have a shot with the Dodgers executives? Potentially. We're going to find out. I think this is next week. Really, we might find out even after I go live here tonight. More names are trickling out there, But in a nutshell, there's a lot of options here for the Mets. There are some that are more realistic than others. But all that matters to me as a Mets fan that is covering the Mets here on WardyNYM is that they just bring in hires that they do not rush. I do not want them to be in a situation where they're doing it for the sake of, we need a president of baseball operations. Well, just hire him when he wasn't even, their fifth best choice. Like, they need to make sure that they make proper hires, even if they're names that we're not necessarily familiar with. Maybe they're not the flashiest names. That does not change the fact that they could be huge impacts for the better in this Mets organization. So I can tell you for certain, I did not know many of these names at all, literally at all, going into this offseason. I do not have a great background knowledge of baseball executives that are not in the Mets organization. And that's something that I'm going to be doing more homework on, however, because it's important to know all these options, right? But they have options. I like some of them. I like some of them more than others. But as long as they do not rush this, I think the Mets are going to be in safe hands at the end. Michael, no, I don't think so, because I think if the Mets are truly adamant about interviewing one or both of Burns and Gomes, they're going to wait it out. What's my hockey channel? It's WardyNHL. That name will be changing soon, though, to Rangers Review, because all I do is I do a weekly podcast with my co-host, Steven, and we talk about the New York Rangers at least once a week there. So that's all there is to know for the hockey coverage. And guys, we are 40 likes away already from 100. So if you're watching the live stream right now, please make sure again to smash that like and subscribe on. Always does mean a lot, folks. And again, thank you so much for the support in advance. One more thing I will say in regards to the Mets president baseball operations search. I'm not in love with them getting some options, as you see here, that they're circling back on completely from last year. Because if the Mets were considering certain people last year and they did not pull through with them, why are they doing it this year? And why didn't they pull through with them last year? If it was because they didn't have the prettiest resume, among others, then that's a concern. And that's where I have question marks with a Michael Hill, for instance, with a Doug Melvin to a certain extent, with a Bobby Heck. There's a lot of question marks with them solely because of the fact that the Mets have already considered these guys for one position or another. So does a year change that much? Is that because they aren't in a position where they can land certain guys and they feel that they need to backtrack a little bit? I hope not. Again, I just really, really hope for their sake that how they're evaluating this president baseball operations search NGM, that they don't simply go for all the same candidates that they were doing last year. Because if they do, then we're back to square one again, and you're not going to get anywhere. What's up, Bruce? How's it going, my man? What's the individual track record? Gomes and Burns. Ram, I've broken them down completely in a separate video, which is in the description down below. So please check it out if you haven't already. You're going to get everything you need to know about Gomes and Burns when it comes to their resume in their entirety. So definitely check that out is what I would recommend versus me just going the lengths of just looking up, word for word, everything that they've done for you. Not for you, for the Dodgers, pardon me. Braves assistant GM, he very well could be thrown in the hat too. That would be a scenario there where it would probably be assistant GM to GM, not president baseball operations. There has been rumors about Zack Scott again as well through SNY. They believe that the Mets still view him highly. Whether Zack Scott stays in the organization or not, though, I don't know. A lot of uncertainty right now. So I've ruled Zack out for a bit now just because it made multiple reasons. There were multiple reasons as to why the Mets might not go back to him. Anything's possible, however. I personally, though, I think there are better options out there. But this is coming from someone that does not have this experience or the knowledge to the same extent as the people that are running the Mets right now. So keep that in mind also. We're already less than 20 subs away from 9K on the channel, folks. So if you're new here, please make sure to smash that like and subscribe button again. We're going to get a 9K, then we're trying to get a 10K by winter meetings in December, folks. Thank you all so much for the support. It really does mean a lot, everybody. You want Minaya back as GM? I do not, Larry. With due respect, I do not. I think that ship has sailed. I think the Mets need to get out of the habit of just constantly circulating the same type of options for them that are in the organization. They need to branch out. They need to get other people. I'm not in favor of just circulating guys through in the organization. That's something I'm not a fan of. I want Burns. I like Burns a lot. I really do. I think he makes a lot of sense. I don't necessarily know how likely he is, however, just from what we've seen. Hold on one second, folks. Tim Bryn, who covers the Mets through The Athletic, just came out with an article. So I'm going to breeze through it quick to see if he has any names that he's thrown in the hat that we could potentially discuss outside of what we have to this point. Just give me 1 second while I do that. Yes, there is a paywall for The Athletic. So, but I've been connected with them for a while. So I don't mind paying is my point. Okay, so Tim Bryn did bring up a name that I haven't talked about for the sole purpose of it just doesn't feel likely. It's possible, but Mike Chernoff for the Cleveland Indians, or should I say Cleveland Guardians, was considered last year but turned down the Mets a year ago. So I'm not sure exactly how much would change now. I do believe it went in hand with his wife not wanting to leave. So I don't know exactly how much that has changed in a year's time. So I'm not betting the house on Mike Chernoff at all from Cleveland's organization. He did bring up, of course, Josh Burns as well. Besides that, there really, let's see, there aren't really any other names that he brought up besides those two between Burns and Chernoff. He mentioned in what the timeline will be for the Mets to get this done. He said the GM meetings are the second week in November, and the Mets will be in a precarious situation if they don't have someone in place as either president or GM by then. Yeah, I agree. I think it's important to hopefully get these hires done by the first week of November for sure at the very latest. Not trying to rush things per se, but trying to get it done in a realistic time frame where you're still able to operate as such. We're under 30 likes away from 100. Thank you so much for that support again, guys. Really does mean a lot. My take on Buck Showalter, I've talked about him on the channel. I'll talk about him more. There really isn't much to expand right now. I have my natural concerns with Buck Showalter in a nutshell. Let me put it that way. Do I think they go this year without a player, baseball operations, and hire GM only? See, this is a good question, Alex, but the reason why it doesn't add up is you're putting way too much risk into things. that Stearns is going to walk and he's going to not get extended by the Brewers. What do you think the Brewers' absolute objective is going to be over the next year? It is to extend David Stearns. The Mets cannot put themselves in a scenario where they go another year without a president of baseball operations, hire just a GM, have Sandy potentially involved in baseball operations, and then next season, once that is done, Brewers might have already extended Stearns. He might want to stay there and not want to leave. It's a wishful thinking, but it's not realistic. I do not think the Mets will be going down that route. Gotta have faith the Mets will get the right guy and not rush it. I've got faith. So do I, Darren. And again, happy to have you in here, my man. Great member on the channel, as always. There's just so many names, guys. And this is such an open, fluent situation. I love having these conversations. They're a lot of fun because out of all the names, pardon me, which ones are going to hold true in the end, if at all? Are the Mets going to land a guy or multiple people that haven't even been reported? I think there's potential for that as well. Wouldn't surprise me in the slightest. But again, to kind of, start to wrap things up here on my personal thoughts, the Mets have plenty of options here, and losing out on Stearns, Beane, Theo is not going to hurt this team, okay? This was a proper move for them to push forward and try to get one of these guys. It's unfortunate that they couldn't, but it was never a strong likelihood from the beginning. It's perfect that they understand that now, have plenty of time to interview plenty of other names out there, and there are a lot of them that are enticing. Not all of them. Something about Doug Melvin that I've seen just from searching the web a little bit. There are people that aren't in love with that just because Doug Melvin is, from what I've seen, just from what people have talked about. This is not solely my opinion. I'm just relaying the message. People are concerned about Melvin as an option, given that he's a little past his prime, to put it lightly. There's a reason why he isn't the GM of the Brewers anymore. So what kind of impact would he have on the Mets? Would it be too old school? Would there not be enough new school in that? That's something that I think is a fair argument from what I've seen. I'm not in a position to defend one way or the other. I'm just telling you guys from what I'm currently seeing across the web. Darren, so why, my man? Definitely, I hope it's a good one tonight. Yes, LGR, baby. Let's go. What's going on? It's an honor, a pleasure to be here. David, what's up, my man? Great member on the channel. David, just to kind of rehash things, the Mets were not able to interview Billy Beane or David Stearns. They are out as potential candidates for president of baseball operations. They will be seeking elsewhere. There's a lot of names that they've been connected to, or rumored to at least, that we have presented. The majority of them we have up on the screen right now. There's really just like one or two that I haven't listed just because, again, it all varies on likelihood, and this is all either hypothetical, speculative, or some of them, like Josh Burns, who's actually been reported. None of the Rays rumored, executives rumored. Oh, no, that's not true, actually. Bobby Heck is the assistant to the GM, a special assistant to the GM. So Bobby Heck is part of the Rays organization. MSG this year, I'd love to, Thomas. I don't know, though. We'll see. I would definitely love to go to MSG at some point this year. I just don't know when yet. Hold on, folks. I'm just searching the web again for you all. But I want to expand just a little bit before we wrap things up because we're getting towards the end of the live stream. Nothing too extravagant today. Just at least an hour and a half discussion on what's going on because this was some very important news. I had to, again, delete my David Stearns video I originally posted because it made no sense to just rehash things exactly the same after the news about Billy Beane came out today. But Thad Levin, or Levin, however you pronounce his name, is Senior VP and GM of the Minnesota Twins. He is a name that has been rumored, not reported, rumored, as floated out there. Matt Arnold is another name who is a GM of Milwaukee Brewers right now. He is a guy that you would be moving up from GM all the way to president baseball ops. So if we're not going to get David Stearns, let's try for someone below him. That's a promotion aspect that actually has more likelihood for sure. Scott Harris, who's the GM of the San Francisco Giants, he did a great job with San Fran this past year, and they got screwed over by a call that should not have been a called strike on Wilmer Flores, our boy, the man we love and covet so much, Wilmer. Not to get on a tangent in regards to playoffs, but and there's no saying that the Giants would have came back and won that game, but still bad call, really bad call. Doug Melvin, as we talked about again, he is the current senior advisor for the Milwaukee Brewers, and then Bobby Heck, that we've talked about as well, who is the assistant to the general manager in Tampa Bay. Brandon Gomes, assistant GM. Michael Hill, who is former president of baseball ops for the Marlins from 2007 to 2013. Those are the names that have been floated. There's some other ones out there as well. Between what's been talked about with Cleveland, I just don't. Chernoff just doesn't feel likely to me right now, only because if he denied the Mets a year ago, why would it change now? Once we find out a reason as to why it might change, then I'll talk about it. Who would I like? Ryan, there's multiple names I'd like. I think it starts with guys like Josh Burns and Brandon Gomes because they both have great resumes and they're young. I like that a lot about them. I would start with them and then make my way down, but that doesn't denounce, other names here. Let me make that clear. Just personal preference from what I've seen. Josh Burns, Brandon Gomes are two names that I do like a decent amount for sure. Ooh, here's some further detail that you guys might like to know. Shout out our boy Thomas in the chat for sending this my way, because I didn't go deep into discussion on all of them, but I would like to mention Bobby Heck because it could be important here. Again, he was someone who was considered last year for the GM job for the Mets, but fell short to ultimately Jared Porter, and then it was Jared Porter, then it was Zack Scott. But during his time with the Rays, he's done a great job. And before that, however, he has been a great baseball mind that is highly respected around the league for his scouting abilities. This is someone who he could be a great fit for the Mets regarding his player development and scouting. He has been a heavy factor during his time with the Houston Astros for 5 years, spanning from 2007 to 2012. This is regarding Bobby Heck, and was largely responsible for drafting big names like George Springer and Carlos Correa. That's very interesting as well. Two names that the Mets have been connected to. George Springer, everyone wanted last offseason. Mets ended up not getting this offseason. A lot of Mets fans, including myself, would love Carlos Correa, even though it doesn't feel realistic. That's great, though. I think that's important. And looking at other names as well, guys like Jason Castro, JD Martinez, Mike Fultonavich, even though Mike, is a shell of what he once was, Preston Tucker. It's important for the Mets also that I mentioned with a guy like Josh Burns, who has a great resume when it comes to player development. It seems like that goes directly in hand with Bobby Heck to a certain extent and drafting. I like that a lot. I know that goes for some of the other guys that we have listed as well. But if the Mets just make it a priority here to not just make sure you don't rush the situation currently, but also bring in guys that know how to handle the scouting, the player development aspect, will be massive for them in the game where they need to be to not just have short-term success, but to have long-term success. Because this should be a hire for the Mets that they make that shouldn't change anytime soon. If it does, then there's an issue there, in my opinion. But with saying that, folks, that is going to wrap up today's live stream. I hope you guys all enjoyed. Broke down a lot on rumors, reports that breaking news came out during the breaking news live stream, no less, on some other names that will be floated out there. But in a nutshell, Billy Beane, David Stearns, no longer options for the Mets. What's next? Here are some of the potential fits as you see on the screen here. And we'll be talking about plenty more, I'm sure. And guys, when there are significant reports that come out for the Mets being tied to some other names, We will discuss them in separate videos or live streams as well. When breaking news happens regarding hiring people, missing out on people, signing, trading people, we will be live on the channel for that as well, all throughout the offseason. We'll be having so much individual videos and individual content coming out. Huge content is coming out over the next week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, really overall. Throughout the entire offseason, you're going to see endless content, and it's going to be great stuff. A wide variety of topics, too, not solely just breaking news stuff that's happening. A lot of top 5 videos are coming out regarding some topics I think you guys are going to be very intrigued to check out. So again, thank you all so much for the continued support. I hope you enjoyed the live stream. Make sure to let me know your thoughts in the comments below, even if you're watching this live or on replay after this is already uploaded, so I can see your further thoughts and get to them as soon as humanly possible. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. Help us get a 9K and then 10K for our ultimate goal by winter meetings, and also help us by getting us to 100 likes here in this stream of the video. Thank you again, guys. Love you all. Appreciate all the options that the Mets have, I should say. And I'm looking forward to seeing who they're going to land with. All I hope is that someone good. It's really as simple as that. Let's get someone good in here. Let's get a GM. And let's get rolling on what's bound to be a hectic and yet eventful offseason. I'll talk to you guys soon. Thank you so much. And of course, let's go Mets.